Here's the United Auto Workers Union members have voted down a 4-year contract with Fiat Chrysler.
Already members at plants in Toledo and Sterling Heights have rejected the plan. And really here, mathematically speaking, it is virtually impossible that it will pass at this point. Under the deal, all workers would get a $3,000 signing bonus. Entry-level workers would get a raise, and workers hired before 2007 would receive 2 3% wage increases and 2 bonuses over the life of the contract. There are also concerns over plans to relocate various vehicle production.
Now, joining us now to talk about this, the host of Autoline Daily, John McElroy. John, thanks for being here as always. First of all, why is this deal falling apart?
Well, I think what happened is that the leadership of the union overpromised what they were going to do with this 2-tier wage thing. For the last year, they've been saying that it was unacceptable and they were going to get rid of it. But in point of fact, in the contract, there's now, I think, 4 different tiers there. And I think that is the key thing. There's no one single reason, but I think that is probably the predominant one as to why the workers are rejecting it.
This contract did close that gap, though, didn't it, between the tiers?
Very much so. Now, that's over a 4-year period. So whereas the legacy workers right now are making about $28 an hour, at the end of the contract, the new hires, as it were, the tier 1 is what some people call them, will end up at around $25. So they did close the gap, but they didn't get rid of it.
Yeah, there has to be some closing of the gap, wouldn't you think, from the standpoint of the automakers, because Chrysler is the most profitable with that lowest amount for that second tier. GM, in the meantime, has got the least amount between the tiers, and they're also the least profitable.
Well, there's no question that each and every one of the big 3 are going to have a different kind of contract. They always have. Now, there's a pattern to it, but there's always variations that each one of them get, because Chrysler, being the smallest, really cannot afford as much as what General Motors or Ford can do.
What happens if this is ultimately rejected? And it certainly looks like, as we said, mathematically that's going to happen. So is it automatic that they're going back and going to be working with Fiat Chrysler here, or could GM or Ford be brought in the equation at this point?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joanne, and everyone's trying to figure out what's going to happen next. I think the easy thing for the UAW is to say, look, let's put the FCA negotiation at the side for the moment, and we'll go after GM or Ford and try to get something settled there and let them set the pattern. But they could also try to go back to FCA. I don't think they're going to get anywhere. They've had these negotiations going on for over a month now, and all of a sudden they've shaken hands on it, but the members rejected it. I think FCA is going to say, hey, look, you guys negotiated in good faith, we negotiated in good faith, and it didn't come off. Now it's your problem. Except that if it goes to be their problem, I smell a strike at the end of this.
Now, isn't this somewhat of a referendum for the union itself with the right to work in Michigan? Now, if the union somehow doesn't follow this thing through to the membership's satisfaction, they risk losing a lot of members.
Well, I'm not sure it's a lot, Stephen. I think they could lose some. I think they could lose some of the extremists on it. But I think overall, the people within the UAW are pretty much going to stand by it, at least in the state of Michigan.
You know, I have to think that the UAW leaders were somewhat proud of this deal when they made it. Do you think they just didn't sell it well enough to the membership?
Joanne, I think that's exactly the issue, because when you look at it, the base workers are going to get a minimum of nearly about $28,000 in additional compensation over the next 4 years. If everything goes right, it could be $40,000. Same for the legacy workers as well. So there's some very good things in the contract that I don't think that the leadership of the union has done a good job of selling to its members.
All right, we'll see what happens next. John McElroy, thanks so much for being with us.